Okay, everybody, we are now at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens. This location is significant because when the Congregational Children of Israel was going through their remodeling of their congregation, of their synagogue, their worship area, um, this place hosted all of the um, religious services that CCI had for their congregation. So I also provided security here while their synagogue was under construction. So the next, the last question is actually a two-part. So I'm going to answer one part of the question here, and then we'll go over to our last and final location and answer the second part of the questions and wrap everything up. So I've heard this question asked myself many times. I've also asked one of my opponents as well on the other side. It says, what are the two things you are going to do in your first year in office? And the answer that I had heard from one of my opponents is, I don't want to be held to a timeline. I have ideas, but I don't want to be held to a timeline to accomplish these things. In my opinion, wrong answer. The, the members of the sheriff's office wants answers. The community wants answers. If we're going to elect you into an office, what are you going to do for us? Well, Clark County residents, this is what I'm going to do the first thing I get in there. The very first thing I'm going to get in there and take care of is the overtime pay for all of our members. At present, all of our sworn officers in all three sections of the agency are paid their overtime one time a month or every other pay period. And these guys work a lot of hours for the agency, actually for you as a community. And to be only paid once a month, in my opinion, is unacceptable. There is a section in the courts and sometimes even the road section that if you work overtime, they time adjust you, meaning that you either come in late or you leave early from one of your scheduled shifts within the same overtime pay period. And I don't think that's right. Another thing that happens is if a person takes vacation during that month time, they actually receive straight time instead of time and a half for their overtime. And I'll take a reason. This is the reason why I want to do what I do. This is the change I want to make is just like our civilians. Our civilians are paid overtime every 2 weeks. Corporate America, overtime is paid every 2 weeks. So our law enforcement officers and our first responders of Clark County should be no different. I'm unaware of how the police officers for the Athens Clark County Police Department are paid for their overtime. I do know they also work a lot of overtime as well. But I know with the sheriff's office, they pay once a month, and I want to change that to every 2 weeks. And this is one of the reasons why. One, you're going to get a better committed officer, knowing they're going to help us out while we're trying to get recruitment up, help us out at the jail, help us out on the road, help us out in courts, so that we can maintain staffing, the minimum staffing that we need to safely operate our three sections, and they get paid their money right away. The second thing is if they take a vacation, and I'll use an example. The very first pay period, they don't work any overtime at all, which right now it's almost unheard of because these guys are on mandatory overtime as it is. But let's just say to humor us, the first 2 weeks of the pay period, the deputy does not work any overtime at all, but takes 1 day vacation. Okay, that is 12.0 hours of vacation that they take. Now the second pay period, they work 12.25 hours of overtime. Now, because it's in the same overtime pay period, even though it is a different pay period, in the same overtime pay period, that deputy is only going to get paid 0.25 hours of overtime, because those 12 hours that he or she took 2 weeks prior is going to be reduced from overtime straight pay, overtime premium or time and a half to overtime straight pay, which means they're going to make the exact hourly rate that they're working if they're working a regular shift. That shouldn't be. These guys should get paid for the hours that they work and for the time that they give to us. Some of the things I found very interesting with all of this is the amount of money that is being spent on overtime. I'm going to go over the audit of 2018 that the Organizational Analysts Office has had worked out. In 2018, if you're not familiar, in 2018, the Clark County Sheriff's Office went and started, was advised of an audit, and in the spring of 2018, that audit began, and it started off with a series of questions for all of the members of the Sheriff's Office, and then they did their investigations from there. Well, this is actually a part of their findings of the audit, and it's appalling on how how much over budget that we are just in overtime alone. Okay, now this is over the last 5 years, from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 2018. At fiscal year 2018, they budgeted $359,861 for overtime, and that is divided amongst the 3 different divisions. Obviously, the jail being the bulk of it. In 2015 and the rest of the time through, to include fiscal year 2019, which I'll get into that in a second, they increased their budget to $362,824. Okay, $273,024 of that is for the jail. Now, actual numbers that they had spent in fiscal year 2014. They spent $878,939, from $360,000 to $880,000 in overtime in overtime monies paid out. In fiscal year 2015, they spent $1,057,350. In fiscal year 2016, $1,211,331. In fiscal year 2017, $1,469,060, and in fiscal year 2018, $1,299,880. This is your taxpayer money getting spent on overtime when we have a serious staffing issue. Okay, and that's actually going to be my second part of this 2-part question once we get there. So basically the totals is, for a 5-year period from fiscal year 2014 to fiscal year 2018, the Clark County Sheriff's Office command staff, to include your sheriff, budgeted for $1,811,157 for overtime. Actual expenditures, $5,916,560 that the Sheriff's Office spent over the course of 5 years to staff all of their critical posts within the jail, primarily, the road, and the courthouse. But most of that money went towards the jail. As a matter of fact, $5 million of that went to staffing overtime, or paying overtime for the jail. Now, for you number crunching people, I actually have to cheat, because I wasn't really all that great in math, but I'm learning very quickly because my wife is a great mathematician. 69% over what was originally budgeted. Now, I didn't calculate that. That actually came from the audit. I'm reading it right here. So I actually took a step further. I went in and requested financial documents from the Finance Department of Athens Clark County Unified Government, and I wanted to see what was going on for fiscal year 19. I tried to get fiscal year 2020, but the fiscal year is not quite over yet, so trust me, good citizens of Clark County, I will be getting those numbers as well. You add in an additional $362,824. That brings the new total over a 6-year period to $2,173,981. That was budgeted for 6 years. they spent so far. Now, like I said, I have not seen what 2020 numbers look like, but in fiscal year 2019, they spent $1,601,000 and $1,601,125, a 23% increase from the previous 5 years, putting that grand total at $7,517,685 of your hard-earned tax money that you entrusted the sheriff to spend wisely, strictly on overtime alone. So why are we having a staffing issue? You would think that would be a no-brainer to increase our staffing. So one of the things that I had researched on some of the sheriff's previous videos and some of the documents he even put out there, and he wants to be a good steward of your funds, a good steward of the taxpayer money. So my question to you, Sheriff, is how can you say that you're a good steward of county taxpayers' money when you are 69% over budget in overtime alone? That's a very good question. That's a question to myself as a taxpayer of this county, not only a candidate for sheriff of Clark County, but a taxpayer. I would want to know the answer to that question. So I started digging a little bit more, particularly about the audit, and this is pretty much a little bit off the topic of the overtime. The answer to my next question you'll see will actually tie in to the overtime, and these numbers will come down when my plan works properly. When we get recruitment going and get more staff on, the overtime will come down. That money will come down and saving taxpayers money over time. But I learned that the 2018 audit isn't over. I learned that by mistake. I found out, I had heard through the grapevine, and you all know what rumors are, it's the rumors spread rampant at times. But doing some little bit of investigating, I found that the medical department was also added to the 2018 audit. And I had just recently learned that the audit it was not completed. The goal for the audit completion was April 2019. A year ago, this audit was supposed to have been finished. So what's taking so long? Is there some unanswered questions that need to be answered, or is the sheriff and his command hiding something? Well, I'm looking at the work in progress. This is the audit status report of April 16th, 2020 from the Office of Operational Analysis, and there are 4 departments right now that are being audited by this department. The top one obviously is the Clark County Sheriff's Office Inmate Medical Services Contract, and their purpose of the audit, which I had a feeling was coming, and it ties into the overtime, analyzing medical services expenditures. Where's the money going? Okay, and there are 5 different areas that operational analysis looks at. One of them is pre-planning audit, for which right now the sheriff's office is 100% complete, but that's not for the sheriff's office. That's for operational analysis department. Their job is to identify the benchmarks, conduct literature reviews, research best practices, develops a pre-audit survey, request documents related to the client audit, and also conducts pre-conference meeting with the audit client department or the department director, meaning the sheriff, discuss the audit process and the timing of the field work, and answer any questions that may come up based upon the survey that had hit. As of right now, as of April 16th, this information is based upon April 16th, they are 100% done with the pre-planning audit. The next stage is the discovery stage. They are 90% complete with that. That is your interviews, information validation, observations, and surveys. At this stage is critical to the preparation of a complete and meaningful audit, which consumes the majority of the time involved. Now, according to operational analysis, they're 90% complete. Now, I could probably go a step further and request additional documents on this and probably have my questions answered. Is why is it not 100% complete? And my guess would probably be the interview stages, the validation of the information, the observation of the survey. They're probably not letting them in so they can interview the people like they did us as the deputies and the civilians of the sheriff's office. They sat us down and interviewed us as well. So I can only speculate. I don't know for sure, but I will find out those answers and I will get back them to you. And after that is analysis, which is 80% complete. That is assigning a meaning or value to the information, determine what it reveals related to the scope of the audit, define systems, processes, and practices in terms of effectiveness and efficiency. As of right now, that's only 80% complete because they cannot finish the discovery stage. Okay? The next two are conclusions, is identifies and describes constraints and opportunities regarding developments and implementation of needed improvements, and recommendations is it suggests actions that can be taken into consideration of the constraints and opportunities. Both of those sections are at 0% complete. This was supposed to be done a year ago. What has taken so long? Okay, I understand right now we're in the COVID-19 pandemic, but it wasn't that way a year ago. 3 other departments, Public Utilities Department, their scheduled planning of completion was February 2019. Their report is finalized. They are finished. Central Services Department, Fleet Management, their target was April 2020. They are finalizing their final draft report as we speak. Animal Services Department or Animal Control, their target was next month for completion. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, they have been unable to complete that audit, which I get that one. I can accept that answer because we have a pandemic going on and most of our departments are right now closed. So I give you that one. Sheriff's Office, I can't give you that one. Okay. Now, one of the things that I've learned looking at the results of the audit was one comment that was made by the Office of Operational Analysis, which could very well explain why I'm running for sheriff and why my opponent, John Q. Williams, is also running for sheriff. Okay, because of the lack of leadership within this organization for the sheriff. Once again, this is coming from their document. Despite welcoming the audit and expressing commitment towards the process and increased transparency, Sheriff Edwards informed us that he would not be serving as the primary audit contact for the SO. Why, Sheriff? It's your department. It's your agency. You are the top person. You are the CEO, as you say, of the Clark County Sheriff's Office. Why couldn't you answer the questions yourself? Oh, I know why. Because in July of 2018, you were in New Orleans with the National Sheriff's Association. That's during the audit time. In December of 2018, you were in Nigeria with the International DARE program. In 2019, July, you were back in Louisville, Kentucky, back with the National Sheriff's Association. In May of 2019, you took a group of kids from the DARE program. Now, don't take me literally on this one. I get it. The kids worked really hard, and it was a trip of a lifetime. So parents of DARE, please do not misunderstand what I'm saying. But the sheriff took a group of kids along with deputies that we could have used in the jail to assist in overtime and giving some of our other members a break, took the entire group to New York City. Okay, like I said, I get it. You know, my daughter went to Washington, D.C. on a school trip. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Most people in Athens don't even leave Athens. So, you know, I'm not dogging the kids out whatsoever. Kudos to the kids. I'm glad it was. I hope y'all had a great time. Wonderful experience. But the house is on fire, and the key people that went should have been here helping us out. I would have maybe solicited some parents and say, hey, you guys want to go chaperone with us? Another opportunity for you guys as well. But that's just me. And then to wrap it all up, in summer of 2019, he was with the FBI LEDA getting sworn in as the second vice president of the organization. So to me, you're everywhere else but where you need to be. And I remember a comment you made, Sheriff, when I was a sergeant at the jail. You said it in my briefing that you don't need to be there to show these guys that you care about them. A bit different with you, Sheriff. They needed to see you. They want to see you. They want to know that you absolutely care for them and care about them and care about their well-being. The overtime and the amount of overtime that these guys are made to work is unacceptable, and we are going to fix that come January 1st, 2021, when I take office as your new sheriff. Okay, so that, I hope I answered all the questions on answered that question to the best I possibly can. I will answer the second part of that question when I get to my last and final location.